everything changes.
Before I get too carried away changing about with my settings for Slicer for my 3D printer, I thought I'd make a video rather of what they are, so that people could see. And there are a couple of bearings I'm making for the filament roll, so they roll a bit smoother on the stand that they come with. So these are my slicer settings. Excuse the shaky camera work. I'm trying to multitask here, so there we are. It's a bit better. I'm trying to hold it with my left hand and mouse work with the right. So for my layers and perimeters, my layer heights are 0.25mm. Minimum of 3 outer perimeters for the object, well, outer and inner I suppose. 3 solid bottom layers, 3 solid top. I've got extra perimeters if needed checked. Detect thin walls checked, and detect bridging perimeters. I'm also experimenting with the seam position at random, because I noticed on one of my prints all the seam was in the same position, and it's got this sort of upward flick to it as it changes and then moves up. So I thought I'd play around with that and see what that does, see if that makes it any better. I've not had many prints with that on, so I'm undecided at the moment. But that's one of the settings I'm testing with and don't normally have. So I normally have aligned and playing with random. Infill, at the minute I'm playing around with octagram spiral. Normally it's just a honeycomb fill at 25%, but for the bearings that I'm printing at the minute I thought I'd just mess around and try out and see what that's like. I've not really messed with any more settings in the infill. They're all as the cane. Skirt and brim, I don't really use that at the minute. I'm going to swap hands here because it's getting a bit shaky on the left hand. I've not really messed around with that skirt and brim. They're as they come. Basically it just gives you a wider footprint on the print bed, stops things toppling over and help them stick better. Support material, I've not really used that either, so I can't comment on that. Now speed, I've got my machine set to 25mm per second. And the default 60 as it says on the screen there, but I've turned mine down to 25mm. The smaller perimeters I have at 10mm, things like small holes for screws and bolts. That's a bit better. External perimeters is 50%, now that's 50% of the perimeter value. Now mine's at 25%, so 50% of that is 12.5. Infill, I've lowered that down to 70mm from 80. Solid infill I've left as is. Top infill, I've left that at 15. Support material, that I did play around with that once, but the settings at 30, the default's at 60. So bridges and gap fill I've not bothered playing around with. See if I can scroll that down. It's all guesswork here. There we go. Guess camera work, that is. Speed for non-print moves 130mm a second. First layer speed I've dialed right down so I could get a good start on the first layer, because as you know that's critical. The rest of the settings in there I've not bothered touching. Multiple extruders I haven't got at the moment, so nothing in there. In advanced, I don't think I've played around with that either. In filament settings, obviously I've got the diameter of my filament set. My extrusion multiplier is 1, and that's as it, well, yeah, as it came, as I remember. Now my temperatures at the minute, first layer is 197. It was 205, but I'm just experimenting with something which I'll explain in a moment. And then the other layers are 185. Well, that would have been 197, but I've shifted things around a bit, so now first layer is 197 instead of 205. Bed temperature is 65. Normally other layers are 60, but I've set it to 0 while I'm experimenting. Now this doesn't seem to have an effect on my printer anyway, so it doesn't matter what I set all the layer value to, it does as it likes. So I have to turn it off at the printer itself using the rotary encoder dial on the LCD on the printer itself, and then go into tune and turn the bed completely to 0. That works. So that's that for the filament settings. Cooling I've not really played around with because I've not really got much of it. I have got a fan stood at the side of the bed, which I'll show you shortly. Now printer settings, I've not done anything in general or custom. It's mainly an extruder 1 where I've just been playing around recently with retraction. In extruder 1 you set your nozzle diameter and any offset to your position of the extruder. Retraction is mainly what I've messed around with. I retract 5mm, lift the nozzle 5mm at 40mm a second. Now as I said to you, it says minimum travel after retraction. I can't quite work out what that is. It says retraction is not triggered when travel moves are shorter than this length. So I guess that means any moves under 10mm retraction shouldn't happen, but I'm not sure if that's happening or not. I've not really checked that. And that is my settings in Slicer. What I will advise you to do is, if you move from tab to tab, is you save. So when you've done setting everything in print settings, click save. If you've got more than one printer or you're experimenting, save more than one copy. This is my main settings file. I save everything to that. I can generally remember the settings I had before, so but it is a good idea to save a copy of a working bunch of settings. So I think that's it for that. And obviously these have a bearing on how long it takes to slice, how long it takes to print, how many slices, etc, etc. So we'll click slice with Slicer anyway. Try and stable the camera a bit. Stop everybody feeling seasick. These take about 2.5 hours to print out of my settings. Yeah, 2 hours 37, and that time is pretty accurate. What it says on there is normally what you get. There are ways of, excuse my fingers in the way, there are ways of speeding that up. Quicker perimeter times, quicker speeds, thicker layers I suppose. I've not played around with that actually. I tend to stick at 0.25, but there are things you can do to tweak that time down, but obviously the quicker it is, other things are sacrificed, such as quality. Now I'm printing these bearings out to test out these new settings. One, because I need these little bearings because they belong over here to stop this hanging at an offset position like it is, and that's turning the reel a bit smoother, and that's then being printed out there using the octagram spiral infill. The height of the base is about 5mm, and then the inner wall that's being printed at the moment is 10mm. Each part's about 60mm in diameter from side to side. Internal diameter is about 34.5 for the whole, and they should just fit on that shaft there, and then the 10mm inserts go in there. I've not vernied any of it obviously because I've seen it on there, but according to FreeCAD all those dimensions are as I've just stated. I'll just show you. I've just started using FreeCAD this morning. I've had a little dabble at a friend's house with it before, but I'm no expert, so I had to get my head back round it this morning, and I whipped up that bearing. Now according to this, the measurements are slightly differ, slightly smaller than I specified, but hey ho. So that's that, and obviously you've seen them in Repetier, which is what I use together with Slicer. Excuse me, this damn cold is not going away. So that's them, and the kind of things I'm able to print out with my settings are these. So it might not be the prettiest of things. Excuse the camera work, autofocus sucks. There we go. It might not be the prettiest of things, but they're certainly functional. And these are part of that SatNOGS rotator I keep mentioning in my other 3D printing videos. And I've had a go at printing out the worm gear, or the worm screw. Let's see, will she focus? Come on, play nice, camera, play nice. Okay, let me just trick the camera 1 sec. There we go, apologies for that. But there, as you can see, it's not come out very nice at all. Now that's using my original temperatures, 205 in the first layer, and then 197. And that had no cooling as well. 0.25 layer, right, as I've said in the settings. Up until it reached the spiral, it was going good. And then you can see it gets a bit ropey. Or rather can't see, there you go, yeah, it gets a bit ropey. So I need to improve that. Now I have put, if it'll focus, I have put, come on, wakey wakey, there you go, I have put a freestanding fan at the side of the bed, as close as I dare, blowing across the parts, see if that improves anything as well. I really need a nozzle, a blower nozzle, but the catch with that is you need a blower nozzle to print the blower nozzle because of all the overhangs, so it needs cooling to achieve that. Well, my effort at the moment is to put a fan there. Now I have tried printing out those worm screws with the fan and it really didn't help that much, but then again it is only blowing a breeze across them. But what I did do was I placed 4, one more or less in each sort of corner on the best area and the flattest area of the bed, so that there was some travel time between each one, so it's not hammering away at the same piece over and over, in which case it just seems to turn into a pool of blob of mush. So by putting multiple pieces on, it goes around, does a layer, moves on to the next one while that one cools, and so on and so on. The only trouble with that is I put 4 on the thing and it was going to take about 5 hours. Pretty much the end result was going to be the same as that. You can see that, yeah, it was all going to look more or less the same as that, so I'd not achieved anything by putting the fan there and putting 4 on the bed. Nothing to be gained by that, so I stopped those about the same sort of height as this, and they went in the bin. So rather than continually print worm screw pieces over and over, I thought I'd have a play with the settings and print something relatively easy to print and make sure the new temperatures and retraction and all that work on a less complicated part, which it's doing. And now I'm a bit happier with these settings, and I've lowered the temperature down by about 10 degrees. And I'll have another go at printing out the worm screws again once these are done. Let's see how we get on. I'm determined to master the worm screws. They're the big test at the moment. If I can master them, I'll be really happy. It may be a case that I need multiple settings for slicer, settings for printing smaller, more detailed things and more complicated things with overhangs like this, and then just general settings for whipping these things out quick. I say it's overkill, the level of detail that these are going to at the moment. I would expect about an hour of printing, but the settings I've got at the moment are going to be about 2.5 hours, as you've seen. So, but it's all for the benefit of testing. So I must apologise for the camera work. I'm sort of stooped over. I'm quite tall. This bench is more or less waist height, so I sort of have to bend double and squat over the printer, if you like. Hello camera. Are we playing? Are we zooming? Are we not? Are we focusing? Are we not? What are we doing? No. Anyway. Excuse me. So that's where I'm I get my words out. That's where I'm at the moment. Just testing out these new settings with these bearings. Hopefully going to have another crack at these worm screws. So these are the other parts, or some of the other parts that go along with that. And they've come out great, you know. That little blemish there is obviously where there's a bit of a rough spot on the bed. It's the same tape I've had on since I got the glass bed with the printer, so I've not changed it. And it does a marvellous job. Excuse me. Does a marvellous job. Once you get things on it, you can't get them off. Hence, it's all mashed up now. Where I've been prizing away trying to get my parts free. So I can't complain. There's people out there that can't get them to stick at all. So, you know, you might want to try some of this blue tape out. I've seen it as well in a big blue panel, one piece. I've not actually looked into getting any, but I have seen it, you know, on various videos and on actual printers, and why they decided to do it with gaps in, I don't know. But yeah, so this is a clamping piece. It's got a bit of spring in it, which is good. Not likely to snap, all brittle. So these are PLA parts. I think you're supposed to print them out in ABS. I'm not quite sure, but it's not going to be under any heavy stresses or anything like that. So I'll try them out in PLA. So I'll leave it at that for now. I hope the settings are going to help somebody. One thing I would like to say is that this camera sucks. No, the firmware in the printer hasn't been touched or altered in any way. It's as it came. All the steps are as they came. Everything. The only thing I've had to do really is play around with the settings in Slic3r and just get the bed level. And as I keep banging on about, if you get that first layer down, you can just get on with whatever you want to do and know that it's going to print okay. The only proviso to that is with things like this worm screw, where you will need to keep an eye on them and just check that they are going okay. But with things like this, I can go on about what I'm doing. I still need to stay in the immediate vicinity, but I can get on with other things, knowing that the first layer's down and the rest are going to go okay. One of the main things I have to do is keep just freeing off a bit off the spool, make sure that it's slack and there's no tight spots, as I've said, and then let it go. Right, I'll leave them to run. I'll probably put the links in the description to the STL files for these if they work out okay. Well, if they don't work out okay, I shall just adjust the sizes accordingly and then I'll include the links. Am I the only one that could watch this all day? I quite often stand here when I could be doing other things and I'm just watching it lay, line after line. It's quite hypnotic. But I'm not going to. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.